Of all the new details in the latest Tears of the Kingdom trailer, and boy was there a lot, one of the biggest topics to come out of it is the new enemies showcased. You might have seen a video or two on this already. But for me, the new enemies are probably the biggest takeaway from this trailer. This not only confirms what most Zelda fans wanted, but opens the door to so many possibilities in this game. So today we're going to look at these new enemies and talk about how they might be implemented, as well as the likelihood of more classic enemies making a return in Tears of the Kingdom. But before we begin, make sure you're stocked up on Red Potion and fully healed as we face off against all the evils in Tears of the Kingdom by subscribing to the channel and turning those notifications on. One of the first things we see in this trailer are these new flying creatures, confirming the identity of the mysterious flying monster from the previous trailer. These monsters have characteristics of dragons while also looking like frogs or bats with antennae. The Lovecraft fan in me absolutely adores these guys. The most popular suggestion is that they are Tears of the Kingdom's version of the Kargarok. The Kargarok is a flying enemy in multiple Zelda titles and also has a few different variations. Twilight Princess's Kargaroks are more draconid in nature, taking on the appearance of a pterodactyl or a prehistoric flying dinosaur, with the Shadow Beast Kargarok looking more, well, Twilight Princess inspired. Kargaroks of Wind Waker, however, are much more avian in appearance and are virtually just a giant bird. The connection to Wind Waker is the strongest due to the later scene of these Kargarok carrying bokoblins, a tactic the Kargaroks of Wind Waker utilized. Another suggestion I've seen pop up here and there is that instead of Kargaroks, they are a different type of Keese, perhaps an ancient species reintroduced into Hyrule, or Keese that have been afflicted by Ganondorf's malice and have taken on a new appearance. I think this is much less likely, just given the huge difference between Keese and these new enemies. It's also entirely possible that these are just new enemies and not anything we've seen in Zelda before. Regardless, there seems to be an abundance of these new monsters, and they look to be one of the main enemies that Link will come into contact with. We can assume that there will be a few different ways to fight them, given the scenes of Link shooting one with an arrow and the focus on them carrying bokoblins. We knew beforehand that the familiar monsters of Hyrule we know and love were getting a huge Malice-themed buff. This trailer gave us a significantly better look at how bokoblins, moblins, and Lizalfos have changed in the sequel. In addition to the horns on their heads being changed to what appear to be spears or sword blades, we can also see that the habits of bokoblins have changed. This bokoblin is mining while a group of malice-laced Lizalfos stand guard around the stone. It has a crate or pack of some kind that it is storing that ore in. For what use this bokoblin has with raw materials, I'm not sure, but it can't be anything good. Additionally, we have a new enemy known as the Boss Bokoblin. This bokoblin is a lot larger in appearance and seems to command small units of lesser bokoblins. These new enemies are very reminiscent of both the Skyward Sword Moblin, thanks to its chunky stature, and the Skyward Sword bokoblins that use a horn to alert other enemies of your presence. It looks as if the Boss Bokoblin will also fill a similar role of alerting nearby enemies to attack. It's also a safe bet that this monster will be a bit tougher than a standard bokoblin and will likely have different attack patterns. From what little footage we get of the Lizalfos, we can see that their appearance has changed and is visibly altered due to the Malice. Malice-infected enemies are also something we saw in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and was one of the most widely presumed mechanics to be added into Tears of the Kingdom. This scene shows that in some capacity, we will see the potential of Malice having an elemental affinity, much like fire, ice, and electricity. Sadly, there's not really anything super substantial when it comes to the Moblins, as the few scenes we got of them gives us a better look at the new helmets they wear. There's also a few quick shots of what most people believe to be a herd of Moldugas, a Hinox with a new bauble around its neck and a giant spike on its head, and another quick scene of Link attacking a stone talus. Besides the Hinox, there's not really anything of note that we can see in these few scenes of new traits for these existing monsters. Perhaps the most exciting new monster shown in this trailer is what appears to be a bona fide fire-breathing dragon. This giant three-headed dragon is standing guard on the Great Bridge of Hylia, which gets me very excited for the prospect of an extremely engaging and cinematic fight. The running theory currently is that this is the return of the classic Zelda boss, Gleeok, the obvious three heads being the key similarity. There is also a chance this could be a new form of Staldra, the dragon-like enemy from Skyward Sword that requires you to strike all 3 heads simultaneously in order to defeat it. I think the more likely option is that this is the return of Gleeok. A monster of this size and menacing presence has to be on the same level as a boss or boss-like enemy. Regardless of what it is, we can see that this dragon's 3 heads are on fire and will obviously use fire as a means of attack, whether that be through breathing it or just as a defense mechanism to keep us from attacking it. The tail is also worth pointing out. I don't believe these spikes are just for show. This dragon will likely use its tail as a melee weapon to inflict heavy damage. I can totally see us having to parry the tail swings, much like reflecting a guardian's laser beam. This dragon also appears to have wings, and with so much of Tears of the Kingdom revolving around air traversal, I fully expect that this will be a fight that can be lifted into the air. Imagine mounting the dragon on its back to attack it, just like how we did in Twilight Princess against the boss Argarok. Additionally, we know from the previously leaked gameplay patents that air combat is going to be a huge part of this game, with bow combat taking a huge focus. Particularly, I think the possibility of falling from the sky while this dragon is diving after you would make for just an insane battle. If you remember Gandalf's fight with the Balrog, this is exactly what I'm imagining for this enemy. I really hope that these guys appear all across Hyrule and are going to be similar to Lionel's, posing a huge threat and inducing anxiety to all of us that stumble upon them. If this is just a one-off encounter, then that's fine and would arguably make it a more memorable one, but I don't know, man. I'm a sucker for traditional fantasy tropes. I just want to fight a bunch of dragons. Speaking of airborne enemies, we need to also discuss the giant Zonai Golem that's on a sky island. This enemy is composed of several blocks of Zonai architecture and appears to be powered by more of the same green energy we've seen everywhere in this game. Notably, there's one block that is glowing, which if you know anything about Zelda, then this is likely its giant, obvious weak spot. This monster could serve a few different purposes. I still subscribe to the belief that the Sky Islands will have a tutorial section, and given that the green energy we've seen thus far has been an integral asset to Link's safety and ability to fight, I do believe there is a chance these enemies could serve as a practice dummy, a punching bag for Link to test his new abilities. On the other hand, we do know that they are like monsters in the Sky Islands thanks to the E3 2021 trailer, so this could also just be a giant golem we have to fight. This monster could serve as a sentry, perhaps standing guard to gear or preventing access to puzzles or other islands. Its block design could mean it is in disguise as a structure of some kind, perhaps a tower or cube or a statue. I'm a big fan of this design. The ancient mechanical feel is not something unfamiliar to Zelda, and especially not with Breath of the Wild. This enemy really reminds me of the Garden Knight from the Zelda-inspired game Tunic, and if we get more enemies with this kind of inspiration or theming, I think it'll make traveling the islands all that much more engaging and fun. The Redead, one of the most widely known and loved enemies from the entire Zelda series. Redeads make their return in Tears of the Kingdom in this very quick shot of Ganondorf summoning his minions. Tears of the Kingdom's Redeads have a very skeletal body with a zombified torso and a creepy sideways maw that would likely chew through anything it comes into contact with. I saved the Redead for last because I think its appearance in this trailer sets a precedent for this game. Everything is a possibility now. The return of staple Zelda enemies is confirmed with the Redead. We of course don't know to what extent, but at the bare minimum, we get a fan favorite back. But there's a strong likelihood that we can see more traditional Zelda monsters make a return. The huge underground caves could house all kinds of enemies from Skulltula and Gomas to Helmasaurs and Dodongos. These giant mushrooms and vegetation could be a hint at monsters like Deku making a return. Darknuts and Iron Knuckles revived with malice could walk the corridors of Hyrule Castle. Everything is on the table now. This also includes the nightmare fuel that was the original Guardian concepts for Breath of the Wild. The expansion of Hyrule into the underground and skies above open up so many opportunities to bring back key monsters and enemies that were missing in Breath of the Wild, making a land that's already familiar flush with new and interesting experiences and content. There's no chance that Nintendo has shown us everything and every new monster we will combat, and that's what makes this so exciting. If there's a Zelda enemy you can think of, there's a chance, whatever the likelihood, that it could make a return here. But you tell me, what enemies are you excited to combat in Tears of the Kingdom, and which ones do you desperately hope make a return? Let me know in those comments down below. That, of course, will bring us to the end of the video. Thanks so much as always, guys, for watching this video. It really does mean a lot. Please let me know if you enjoyed the video by leaving it a like and making sure to subscribe for more Tears of the Kingdom content. That's going to do it for this one, guys, and as always, I will see you in the next one.